Parents of kids on Android, you can now create a Google account for your child, even if they aren't 13 years old yet. Today, Google announced Family Link. That's a tool to set time limits for your child, take control over the apps they download, and see how much they're using the particular apps that they do have. All this just for turning over your children's information to Google. Now, Jason, I'm going to start with you because you have an Android. You're the Android expert. You have, this is just for Android users. The parent has to have an Android phone or device, and the kids have to have an Android phone and device. What are your first thoughts on this?
Well, Nougat is required first and foremost. That's 2.8% of users. So if you're getting really excited about this, ask yourself if A, you have a Nougat device, and B, your kids have a Nougat device. That might limit things. It's also invite only at this point, so you have to sign up for an invite. I have definitely signed up for an invite because I've been wondering why Google has not done this for years. And there are apps that you can get to manage this sort of stuff. I use an app called Dinner Time that allows me to kind of have control over my kids' tablets. They don't get a whole lot of tablet time, but when they do, it allows me to kind of see what they've watched and how they spent their time, put time limits on. And it looks like this Family Link allows you to do that. So I'm very excited about this. We were talking about this topic last night on All About Android, and I swear Google does this on purpose. We talk about something, and then the next day they actually release the news. We're like, this would have been really helpful.
Good to know they're watching.
I know, exactly. Hey, I'm all for it.
And they're quick.
I think this is awesome, but my question for you is, does this already exist on iOS to some degree? Do you have parental controls over devices like this?
You do have parental controls. It's called restrictions. It's a little bit hidden, but it does, it does control, you can control the apps that your kids download. There's also, a way in accessibility that you can lock down the phone to one app. App by app basis, like when I read this, I was like, oh, it would be great to see really how much time my kids spend on Snapchat. And, I can't really do that without a third-party app right now. Maybe you know of one, Nate. But, like, you can go through and see how much time they spend on FaceTime, which is useful.
Yeah.
Who they were FaceTiming
want to know that, actually.
with. Yeah. But, oh, man, it is hard to parent with kids and teenagers in this day and age. It is just hard that you can have all of these limits and systems and apps, and your kid is different than other kids, and you have to, it's like you can say, you just talk to them and you learn to trust them, and all that is well and good, and they're going to mess up, and it's tough. What do you think, Nate?
Well, I don't have kids, but a lot of my younger cousins who aren't old enough to have a Google account, aren't old enough to maybe be on Facebook or Instagram, they're using those services anyways, and oftentimes it's actually their parents setting up an account for them and them using it anyways, right? Just basically lying about their age. So I'd really like to see more of this. I'd like to see Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat following the lead here, doing the kind of responsible thing. It does, of course, raise questions for me. I mean, as an adult, I'm making conscious decisions to give up my data and share those things with Google in trade for their services, or with Facebook or any of these companies. And as a reporter, I remain skeptical and always questioning, well, do I really trust these companies with my data? Am I really comfortable giving over these things? And to a certain extent, I think it's a tougher question when you're asking that for a kid who isn't necessarily making that conscious decision themselves, doesn't necessarily know the full ramifications of giving up these sorts of things. So I hope that parents are, giving talks about, online security and data privacy and all of these sorts of things that might be over the head of some kids. But the fact of the matter is that the technology's there. You're going to want to use it. When I was a kid, I was definitely using everything I could get my hands on, and also trying to find ways to get around some of the restrictions that my parents put in place, too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just wanting to be out there and curious. So I think it's a good, responsible move on Google's part. I'd like to see more of it. But it does kind of pose that question of making that decision for someone else that you're responsible for.
Mm-hmm. And are they... are they responsible enough as children to make appropriate decisions? I guess the point here is that parents, have the ability to approve and deny installs. They have the ability to limit the screen time, device time, remotely lock the device if they need to. There's no real ability to lock specific Google apps apparently at the moment, but this is early, so they're going to kind of take some of the feedback of users and kind of form it before a broader launch. No kid-friendly versions of apps, although Google does have some They have YouTube Kids,
Yeah.
which is like a kid's version of YouTube, and no self-respecting kid over the age of 6 wants YouTube Kids if they're at all familiar with YouTube. They know it's like a limited version of YouTube.
Plus, they really
it's not real YouTube.
They messed it up in the beginning. I mean, you
Yeah.
remember when it
Yeah.
launched, and like they were getting all kinds of things that were not appropriate for kids,
Yeah.
and they were advertised all over the place. Those kids, I mean, much more. Like a lot of parents like avoided having regular TV because they wanted to kind of see what the ads that their kids were looking at, and then they thought, oh, okay, well maybe I'll try YouTube Kids, and it was just massively, relentlessly advertised to them in a way that they had to pull back on because parents groups, and consumers rights groups says this is not okay.
And there will still be ads in YouTube Kids. I'm a Play Music subscriber, and that automatically gives me YouTube Red, which is basically the ad-free version of YouTube, and that can roll into YouTube Kids. So yeah, I mean, that's another aspect, actually, now that I think about it. I'll be interested to see how that factors into here. What I end up doing at home is probably not the smartest thing, but my kids aren't leaving the house with the tablet. I set it up with my ID, and that way they get my YouTube Red, and they can get ad-free YouTube. I should probably have a family account, actually, now that I say that out loud. But I wonder how that's going to be factored in here, because that's actually a really important thing. That's something that parents really want, is to be able to say, I don't really want my kids to be staring at advertisements all the time, based on what they're using.
Well, what this could do too is in the situations like that where you're literally giving your children access to your existing accounts, this might allow Google to tell the difference between when your kids are using this product versus when you're using it.
Oh yeah.
And
please.
so creating that sort of like, what are kids into? What sort of advertisements would they want to see? What sort of YouTube videos are they watching? This way they're not getting confused with your stuff.
You should see my recommended playlist on YouTube. It's amazing, let me tell you.
I can only imagine.
All sorts of opening toys videos, and just a bunch of stuff that I'm totally interested in.
Yeah, but from a business perspective, like, this is an opportunity for them to build that rich demographic data to give to advertisers that they have on us that they don't necessarily have on kids just yet. And what a gold mine that could be if they could pull that off.
Yeah, you rope them early, right? Get them a brand affinity from a very young age. I mean, that's probably the reason why the Children's Online Privacy Protection Rule even existed in exists in the first place. So I'm curious to know what's changed now, because Google has held off on doing this for a really long time.
Yep.
Not gone for marketing their products to children under 13 because of COPPA. Why now? What's different?
Well, they have Google Classroom, which is, I mean, they've gotten in trouble for that as well, because parents, it's just the school uses it, and parents don't have a say. They don't get to approve or not approve. There's no privacy policy that parents are given. They're just given, here, we're going to use Google Classroom this year because it's super easy. We can share documents, and, the kids can, work on different things, and they have essentially an email address. This is the irony, that when I had to sign my daughter up when she was like 10 or 11, she wanted an email address, and I was fine with that because a lot of her friends were already chatting, and I just thought email is good. It's slow. It's, you can think about it.
Not
you
public.
can, like practice typing, practice writing, have some thought before you email. But I had to lie, and I did lie. Like I said, yes, she's 13. I signed it up for her. And then now the Google Classroom, part of Google Classroom, is giving kids an email address long before they're 13. So, you had to navigate that like 3 or 4 years ago, like, okay, yes, I'm lying to this company, but I'm your parent, so I get to decide. But now they've done the same thing. Like, my kids all have email addresses with the school, and, they're not the same. They're not open to everyone, but it is very similar. And I think that this might be in response to the EFF got really upset about Google Classroom and the way that kids' information was being used. It wasn't like they weren't connecting like my child's name to what they were doing at school, but they, in aggregate, were using all that information for their own benefit, and parents weren't really made clear on how that works. So this seems to me that it might be in response to that.